So if you have some questions, just write them down on the cards and raise your hand, and we have people circulating that'll be happy to take those from you. I also have a brief announcement about our next meeting, quick announcement. The next program is going to be at the Ambassador Ballroom in the Amway Grand Plaza Hotel on November 19th. The speaker for that program is going to be David Wessel, economics editor of the Wall Street Journal, who's going to talk about our national debt crisis. David has received 2 Pulitzer Prizes, and his latest book, Red Ink, is a national bestseller. So for today, we have a very special program. It's really a joint program of the West Michigan Policy Forum, the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, and the Economic Club of Grand Rapids. We have a very important federal election. I think we're all aware of that, coming up in 8 days. But for Michigan, we also have a tremendously important election regarding proposals to amend our state constitution. These proposals would have a significant impact on the future direction of our state. If you're like me, you probably found many of the commercials regarding these proposals to be a bit confusing and maybe even borderline misleading. I think I've chosen my words carefully enough. I edited them about 3 or 4 times, but I tried to be careful. Governor Snyder will give us his thoughts in a few minutes, but I'd first like to welcome Matt Haworth to the podium. He'll give you a brief update on the West Michigan Policy Forum and the strategic policy priorities of that organization. Matt is the chairman of Haworth Incorporated and a board member of the West Michigan Policy Forum. Matt?
Thank you, Blake. Wow, it's good to be here. By the turnout, I think we all know that the upcoming election and the decisions that our state and our country are going to undertake are very important to our future and our children's future. On behalf of my fellow board members, as well as my 2012 conference co-chairs, Jim Dunlop and Jeff Conley, I want to say thank you for extending the invitation to come share the work of the West Michigan Policy Forum with you. We're really excited to be here with the Grand Rapids Economic Club because we know we share such a passion for common interests, novel ideas, topics to discuss, education, for the purpose of moving our state and our country forward. So, to remind you a little bit of the history of where the West Michigan Policy came from and what our mission is, we're a grassroots organization, and we want to empower the business community at the grassroots level to remove barriers to be able to compete not only in the state of Michigan, in North America, but around the world. We're confident that if we remove those barriers, our companies, our entrepreneurs, and our workers, our hardworking tax-paying citizens, can compete with anyone in the world. And we try to remove these barriers through empowering that grassroots organization. So that's a little bit of our history. In terms of what we do, we like to gather from the stakeholders what their opinion is in terms of what we should focus on. We then stay focused, we drive action, and we are held accountable by our results. So what have we been focusing on? What have the business community selected? If you look up on the slide, you can see a little bit of what we selected in 2008. That was the first time we got together here in West Michigan and Grand Rapids, and we spent several days educating the participants of that conference in the issues of the day. And then at the end of that conference, we solicited their opinion and said, okay, now that we've educated ourselves, what are the areas of focus that we should strive for? And you can see the very first item there, the elimination of the MBT tax through the legislature and Governor Snyder here with the relentless positive action. We consider that achieved. And not only did we create a simpler, more transparent, more predictable tax environment, but we also concurrently really, I think, did a nice job getting our fiscal house and beginning to put it in order. And so that was a great thing. But as you look down that list, you can see that there's more that we have to do, that I think issues and topics that are still relevant to today. Last month, we convened our third meeting, and if you look, what you'll see is that we solicited more input and we built upon the 2008 list. And what you can see is that we continue to add and augment to that list a lot of important topics that we know are needed to continue to move our state forward. So you see, I think, the issue of the day there, the top two being areas of transportation to continue to build that infrastructure and to focus on that. The next two areas are in the area of talent, preschool preparation, pre-K, and then K through 12 metrics and standards. And then we also want to continue to create an environment that will enable better government through putting policies in place that may enable those localities that want to more easily consolidate and become more efficient in terms of their government. When we put those two areas together, you can see the totality of that fall under 5 umbrellas, and we're going to work on those. We look forward to partnering with other like-minded organizations to continue to focus on policy and legislation. But as we wrap up, we know before we get onto that strategic work that we have an election 1 week and 1 day from today. And that's in the area of the ballot initiatives. The positive action that we have moving forward with us and for us, momentum is precious, and our state has it. You can't take it for granted, and we're not entitled to it in the future, but we can work for it, and we've got it, and we cannot lose this momentum. And these ballot initiatives, I believe, and the West Michigan Policy Forum believes, would definitely, if they go the wrong way, would stop our momentum and put this bus in reverse. We don't want that to happen, and we know if we educate ourselves and our citizens, I have all the confidence in the world that we're going to make the right decision and keep moving this state forward. So the summary that we have in terms of trying to make it more memorable, because it's an unprecedented level and number of ballot initiatives, is 1 is a yes, vote no on the rest. And the West Michigan Policy Forum holds that, but we hold that with other like-minded organizations, the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, the West Michigan Chamber of Commerce, the Business Leaders for Michigan, and many, many other business groups. And to share a little bit more in terms of the thoughts on this, I have the privilege of introducing Bill Benson from William Charles Search. He is chair-elect of the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Also, thanks for your important leadership of the West Michigan Policy Forum. I'm excited to be here today to represent the Grand Rapids Chamber of Commerce, and I'm also proud to momentarily introduce our governor, Rick Snyder. This is indeed a critical moment in our state's history. In the last 7 days, the voters of Michigan will be faced with an unprecedented 6 ballot proposals, 5 of which aimed at the state's constitution. I'd like to thank the Econ Club for their willingness to partner with the Chamber on today's luncheon to help provide critical information to the leaders of the Grand Rapids business community. Business, education, agricultural, and economic development groups from around Michigan are helping to educate their membership and public about the impact of the ballot proposals we would have on Michigan's future. I assure you the Grand Rapids Chamber is playing a key leadership role in these efforts. Our staff continues to give presentations on the ballot proposals to community, senior citizen, and business groups, as well as for employees of businesses that have chosen to allow us to hold meetings to inform their employees. On October 16th, your chamber launched a statewide electronic information campaign, which includes a Facebook page, yes, no, 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 no. I wonder who thought of that. But if you've not already done so, please like that page, post, and share posts. We currently have over 4,000 likes on that page. We have also a unique audience weekly of about almost 600,000, and our display ad results have totaled over 63 million ad views since we put that out there. So that shows you the interest in these proposals. Finally, we have billboards going up around Grand Rapids starting tomorrow through the election. These will be placed on high traffic corridors on US 131, I-96, and I-96. So we are working on your behalf. I'd like to thank some of the Chamber Board members and acknowledge them. They're seated in the front of the room mostly. for their bold leadership. We know that businesses here and around the state are engaging with their employees in new ways to make sure their employees are informed on the issues. They are distributing information, like the ballot proposal matrix developed by the Grand Rapids Chamber, which I think everyone has at their table, and holding meetings to brief employees on the impact of those proposals. I encourage everyone in this audience to share your perspective with your employees. Again, this is a critical juncture for Michigan. Unfortunately, we are fighting against commercials funded by special interests, often from outside our state, which mislead and obscure the impact of these ballot proposals. I know from my interaction in the community, good people are still confused about the right decision on these proposals. We need your continued help. The more informed people get on the proposals, the less likely they are to vote for them. Our mantra over this next 7 days needs to be, let the people be informed. One is a yes, and vote no on the rest. We are pleased to be joined today by Governor Rick Snyder. He's down there. 2 years ago, businessman Rick Snyder was a virtual unknown in the political world. As a candidate, Governor Snyder pledged to eliminate the job-killing Michigan business tax and replace it with a flat 6% corporate income tax that is simple, fair, and efficient. He pledged to structurally balance the budget without using accounting gimmicks or quick fixes. He pledged to create an environment where small business can grow and create jobs. Less than 2 years in office, the businessman turned politician has delivered. As promised, he eliminated the job-killing Michigan business tax. He ended the unfair double tax on small business owners. Working together with lawmakers, the governor eliminated the state's $1.5 billion deficit, and in stark contrast to the partisan fighting that had led to 2 government shutdowns under his predecessor, Governor Snyder got the budget done by the earliest date it had been completed in 30 years. Serving as an elected official brings challenges that are different from working as a CEO in private industry. Now that he is making the tough decisions needed to reinvent Michigan, unfortunately, Governor Snyder has encountered resistance from entrenched special interests, protesters, and recall efforts. Anyone who's had the opportunity to hear the governor speak knows that he is not interested in being negative or getting bogged down by unproductive partisan fighting. In this same spirit of relentless positive action that has him moving the state forward and getting things done in his dog years as governor. As the governor said during his inauguration, we can only achieve extraordinary things if we aspire. Please join me in welcoming our governor, Rick Snyder.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please be seated. This is awesome. Thank you. Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction and this warm welcome. I think this is the largest crowd for the chamber events or the Econ Club events I've attended, and it's great to see people turning out because now is the time to turn out. So I want to thank the Economic Club for putting this together, the Grand Rapids Chamber, and the West Michigan Policy Forum. 3 great organizations that show it's important to come together when it's required, when it's needed, and now is that time. Now, I want to get to the questions, but there are a few things I'd like to share with you first in terms of looking at these issues. First of all, where are we as a state? In a simple sense, in 2010, we were broken. We were broken both in terms of the spirit in some ways of our state, but our government was broken. And it was time for reinvention. We started on that task, and when I say we, this is not about me. This is about all of us. We came together in 2010 and said, it is time to do things a new way, to move forward in Michigan, not just fixing Michigan, but to fundamentally reinvent how we're doing and start a new era in our state. And we went on that path, and we got a lot done. I appreciate all those kind remarks about budgets and all those things. I'm proud to say we are the comeback in the United States today, if you look at where the rest of the country is, in terms of improvement in unemployment, in terms of improvement in personal income, in terms of economic growth. Our major industries are doing well, auto's doing well, agriculture is doing well, tourism's doing well, homes are selling again, home prices are starting to come back up across Michigan. So we've got all this great result. But the point I'll tell you is I'm not complacent nor content with what's been achieved. Now is not the time to slow down. Now is the time to apply dog ears, to say it is time to keep going, and to do it with as much passion and excitement and fire, to say, let's just keep that reinvention going. And I am committed to do that. And hopefully you can see that when I'm standing here, hear it in my voice. This is our opportunity, and we are not going to let it go to the wayside. Now, the challenge is there's pushback. And that's the simple way I view these ballot proposals. People said, is this a great surprise to you? And my answer was no. And why was it no? Because it shows we're making a difference. We are reinventing things, and it's the old method. If you think about it, when change comes, when I was running and talked about reinvention, people embraced the concept of change to say we needed to do this. I found out it's not quite that simple when I started talking about budget and tax reform in February. Everybody liked the concept until it applied to them. And that was a really bad idea. But the good part is, as Michiganders, we were able to step back and say, there's no special interest, there's no vested interest, this is about being Michiganders. So people were able to look beyond the challenges of saying what they had to sacrifice to say we all need to do some sacrifice for the best interest of all of us. To create that exciting platform for the future, not just for us, but for our kids. And that's the issue about paying down debt and thinking about this thing. This is not only about us, this is about all our children and creating that state where they can stay here and have that career. So what's happened now? Many people got on board with the reinvention, but there are others, special interests, that don't like it still. And their response was, let's try to go around the legislature. Let's try to put a bunch of things in the Michigan Constitution to derail the reinvention of our state. I don't want that to happen. I don't think that's a good answer for Michiganders. And I certainly hope you join me in supporting that notion that we're going to stand up and say, let's continue the path to success we're on, and not let individual groups put out huge amounts of dollars to simply buy their way into special protections. Because if you step back and look at it, that's one of the other great concerns of this process. Look at the amount of money going into the efforts to put something in our Constitution. It's over $100 million. And then look at the quality of the information being provided. If you look at the airways, both radio, TV, print, people going around with signs, the amount of misinformation is scary. In terms of it, I'll just use one illustration. The vote yes on 6 ads, those TV ads. The only accurate pieces of information in those ads, from my own recollection of going through them, is yes, there is a bridge, and secondly, there is the state of Michigan. There's nothing else accurate. It's all misleading. There are no taxpayer dollars. You see these great ads of these, teachers, public safety people talking about their great need and how they're going to be destroyed by this bridge being built. There isn't one taxpayer dollar. And so that's a great concern. And that's why forums like this are so important, and opportunities that we pass the word, and why we need to keep moving forward. And one of the things when you step back and look at it is one of my greatest concerns about being your governor is I get concerned that we could take a step back. And why do I say that? Is we have a history of doing that. I see a lot of people that are basically in my peer group in terms of same age, same kind of profile coming up. How many times did we mess up on this topic before? And what do I mean by that? I have one graph on my corkboard in my office. It's a chart of Michigan's percentage of gross national product over the last 50 or 60 years. The high point was 1965. Michigan accounted for 5.25% of the nation's economy. Think about that. That was huge. What a powerhouse we were. And if you follow it, there's a lot of loops where there's recessions and comebacks and things like that, but the trend line is just a downward trend line. It bottoms out about 2010, when we accounted for about 2.5%. We had our first little uptick in 2011. We got to 2.57%. So what had happened so many times is we would have recessions. I got out of school in 1982. We were in a huge recession. We were in a depression then. And so we talked about reinventing Michigan back in 1982. 1984 came, 1985 came. We started looking pretty good, and we said, well, we don't need to do anything. Let's just keep on doing the same old stuff we'd always done. That was dumb. And we did that more than once. So each time we'd go through a recession cycle, we'd say we'd need to do it, and then we didn't have the courage, conviction, or the brains to do it. So if you look at that trend, we're a pretty much straight downward slide from 1965 to 2010. Well, enough of that. That's one reason I ran for office. It's time to stand up and say, we're going to go upward. We're going to be positive, we're going to be forward-looking, and we're going to be inclusive. And we're going to reinvent this state. We're going to learn and be proud of our heritage and culture. But we're not going to keep on doing the same things that caused that. And that's what we're seeing today with these proposals. These are good people. They're not bad people. But there are people that have not been able to make the transition to understand the old ways don't work. These are good people that we need to be supportive of, but we need to show them that in this election, we are going to continue moving forward. And we're going to do it with a loud, clear voice that Michigan's best days are not behind us. They're ahead of us. And just on a note you might find somewhat entertaining, this discussion is now permeating most everywhere in our lives about these ballot proposals. I mean, typically, even at home I found it. Because normally I don't talk about my private life, but usually when Sue and I talk, we don't talk politics. We talk about the kids and family. But this is one where she's even come after me. And when I get to see her, I'm actually gone for a night or so here, but when I go back home, I'm in trouble because you know how it works. Sue's always right. And I understand that. I may be governor and governing, but there are limits to my authority and my decision-making ability. So when it came to the ballot proposal, we actually had a disagreement. And the interesting part is we agreed on how to vote on each one, but how we describe it was different. And this group is not helping my cause because I said it's yes on one and no on the rest. And she goes, no, it's not. It's one is a yes and no on the rest. And I am absolutely clear that it is a better marketing answer that you have. So I will go home and share this document. I already placed it in my pocket. So I will take this home. But the important part are the conclusions. One is a yes and no on the rest. And the thing is I'm here to share with you today. But the question I want to ask you is, how many of you have told someone one is a yes and no on the rest? Raise your hand. I see some hands that haven't gone up. Now I want to ask you, how many of you have told 10 people? Okay, now we're down to about a third. How many people have told 20 people? Okay, now we're down to about less than 10%. You know what I'm going to ask now? It's something that's really important. The airwaves are filled with misleading information. We've actually gotten great support from the press The editorials and such have been fabulous. I want to thank M Live came out this weekend with the Grand Rapids Press. And I appreciate their analysis. And that's true of most publications across the state, but a lot of people don't get to read the publications the way they used to. And what's the most trusted source of information about someone voting? It's a trusted friend, a mentor, someone you look up to. So the challenge, I'm going to ask another question. How many people in this room are now willing to commit you're going to talk to 25 or more people? Raise your hand. Oh, come on, we can do better than that. This is Grand Rapids. Come on. You don't do halfway things here, folks. This is a town I always count on for strong, cohesive support. You need to get out there and share the word with your employees, your friends, your neighbors. Does anyone want to see that trend line keep going downward? We have that exciting future in front of us. I am fired up to be your governor. There are so many cool things we're doing. You heard about balancing a budget, paying down debt, tax reform. That's just the foundational stuff. There are so many exciting things to work on if we don't get derailed. And some of these could be devastating. Proposal 2, Proposal 5 could be devastating to our economy and our comeback. So we need to stand up and say, there are great future things to work on. Talent, skilled trades, education, economic development. These are things all teed up for next year. And I'm raring and willing to go. And I hope you want to come with me. So let's take care of November. Let's take care of these elections. Let's vote the right way on the ballot proposal in terms of educating our friends, giving them good information, and let's reinvent Michigan. Thank you so much. Thanks, Blake.
Governor, thank you for your time today. Thank you for your leadership the last 2 years. It was a vacuum that needed filling, and you've done a great job, frankly. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I do have some questions from the audience. I will say that the quality of handwriting spans a fairly wide spectrum. So I can pretty much pick out the school teachers, but some of you need a little practice. But anyway, first question. What do the polls show for the proposals, the current polls?
Yeah, in terms of the polls, polling on ballot proposals is extremely difficult to get good information. There are a lot of polls out there. The positive part is they're trending in what I would consider the positive direction in terms of moving, particularly on 2 through 6 is the one I have the best information on, is they're trending in the favor of saying no through 2 through 6. But we don't want to take that for granted. Now is not the time to say people can be complacent. Now is the time to really reinforce that message. And there are still a large percentage of undecideds out there. So your ability to communicate a message can make a huge difference because in some of these, there's still potentially 20% or more undecided. And the airwaves are not going to be less filled, I guarantee you, in this last week or so.
Thanks very much. Governor, second question. What happens to our state in terms of progressing economic development if proposition number 2 is a yes?
And that is the one I consider that the most economically devastating. Because if you stop and look at it, it's not about collective bargaining. I've collectively bargained twice with state employees. I believe in collective bargaining. I'm going to continue doing it. What this is the back-in-time amendment. What it does would wipe out several provisions in the Michigan Constitution and potentially up to 170 laws. And that's where it hits our economy. Because if you step back and look at it, what would happen if this passes? The amount of lawsuits coming out of this, when you talk about parts of the Constitution and 170 laws, I view it as there's a year to 2 years of massive litigation going on, of massive uncertainty. And then at some point when that gets resolved, some portion of those, could be a significant portion of those 170 laws disappear. And those laws aren't just laws we pass. There are laws there that go back for decades, that have been well established for a very long time. They go poof, they disappear. And you need to go through collective bargaining then. And that's not just with the state. That could be with every school district in the state, multiple jurisdictions. You could have thousands of collective bargaining sessions going on, and that could take how long? 6 months to another couple years. And then when you're done with that, it's clear our costs would increase because we've done some serious reforms. Again, to try to work with people. You could see our costs go up by well over $1 billion a year out of taxpayers' pockets. So if you're a business person, as I just went through this litany, would you be excited about investing in Michigan? When you have 1 to 3 years of chaos and you know you're going to end up paying billions of dollars more. I mean, the greatest thing holding back Michigan's economic recovery today is the mess in Washington. If we didn't have that mess, we'd be growing a whole lot faster. So let's put it in perspective. This would be devastating in terms of Michigan's comeback. The one that would follow that is Proposal 5. Because it's not about 2/3 for any tax increase. It's about 2/3 for any increase in rate or base. Think about this. If we would have had that 2 years ago when I took office, you'd still have the Michigan business tax today. How exciting is that? Because that did not pass by a 2/3 vote, and we had an increase or rate or base to put in the 6% replacement. A much better answer, so it would stop tax reductions and tax reforms of the best sort. And with Proposal 5. See, you get me going. I'm going to cover more than one proposal.
We're here to get you going. Another question. How do we continue RPA, relentless positive action, for the next 2 years if the proposals don't go our way? I think we all know by what our way means for this crowd.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I'm always going to stay positive because that's the best way of doing things. And that's why I tried to make comments about, I don't have ill will towards the people doing the ballot proposals. It's just change. It's change for the best of all of us. And the point here is not to say we're fighting with anyone or pushing anyone away. The long-term answer is we're all Michiganders. We're all in this together. And I'm going to continue that view no matter what, because it's going to pay off in the long run. In many respects, we're the role model for what the rest of the country needs to do, what Washington needs to do. There's way too much fighting. Have you ever thought about that? About all the fighting in politics and the way people treat one another? I think it's broken, and that's one of the things I'm proud to say. I wanted to chart a different path when I had the honor to become your governor by doing relentless positive action. Because think about it. If you look at the normal political environment, would you put up with that in your family? Would you put up with that in your business? Would you put up with that in your social network? You would not accept that behavior in any other part of your life, and somehow we've let it happen in our political world with the people that are supposed to lead us. We shouldn't be proud of that. What we need are role models to say it can be done without being negative. Relentless positive action is a way to win for the long term, and I think we're showing that we're going to win great and show we can grow faster than the rest of the United States by taking this approach. So I'm going to keep it up either way. I'm a boring guy. RPA is going to keep going.
You're certainly a positive guy. Another question. I think we've got a few more minutes. How does Proposal 6 affect projects other than the new international trade crossing?
Yeah, it could have dramatic impact if 6 were to pass. And the one I usually cite is actually, you have great people here working on it, is there's a rail tunnel project under the Detroit River. And the way motor vehicles are defined, it would apply to this project. And if you think about it, the opportunity to do more transportation, more crossings with Canada is just a good thing. Because the current rail tunnel, it's interesting. It's got a couple limitations. One, it can't do double-stack containers, which is a big problem if you think about most ways rail travels. So they have to go through a huge process. The other one's a classic. This is a rail tunnel under the Detroit River, and the other limitation is a car carrier won't go under it. How bright is that? And again, it was built at a time where it didn't matter, but to say, shouldn't we be able to get a car carrier underneath the tunnel to get across the border? And to put it in perspective when you talk about traffic, because again, I don't want to see the Ambassador Bridge go out of business. I want it to be a viable crossing. If you look at Niagara and the Buffalo area, they have multiple crossings. We have 40% more traffic over the Detroit River for commercial traffic, and their crossings are all financially viable. So that's a big piece of it. The other one is, if you read the literal language of the proposal, Read the definition of international crossing. It says any bridge. And so if you read that and you follow the literal interpretation, and this is something that would end up in court if 6 were to pass, does it apply to every bridge project that would be started in every community in Michigan? So how do you like that ballot? What would that look like then if we had to do a local and statewide vote on every new bridge? You'd be really excited to go to the polls, right? Because I always like to ask people, when was the last time you voted on a bridge? Anybody got, no? Because that's the silly point of this. The only reason this is really on the ballot is there's one special interest that has spent over $30 million to protect a near monopoly on their traffic. They're making a lot of money at our expense, and shouldn't we do what's in the best interest of Michiganders? And if this ballot proposal was to pass, we've got some good legal arguments to say we can go forward, but it would delay it another year or two. And why should we delay job creation in the state of Michigan when we got an awesome project without a taxpayer dollar being involved to move forward to really create more and better jobs for Michiganders for now and the future?
Another question on Proposal 4. Does Proposal 4 mean family and friends cannot provide care for seniors?
No, what Proposal 4 does is basically say it was an attempt by one special interest union to say they were able to do a good deal under the last administration where you can have family members providing health care for other family members under the home health care provision, but they just have to pay union dues to the tune of $6 million a year. So you have one family member, in many cases, taking care of another family member that says, instead of having that money go to the family unit to support the family, let's have part of it go to a union. That doesn't make any sense. These are not state employees. And why should they see money taken out of their pocket to help support, quite often, relatives and family members? And so that's the bad part of this. And the commercials there are absolutely taking you down a path of, thinking it's to help people in need and stuff like that. Clearly, we've got a lot of great things to already do that. And we're very concerned. Seniors are critically important. We passed a whole package of bills on elder abuse this last session of the legislature. We devoted more dollars in the budget to the Council on Aging. We are focused on senior issues. So we're working hard to do better by our seniors all the time and are disabled. And this measure is simply a way that we went through and said this wasn't right to have $6 million go away. The legislature passed a bill to say it should stop, and they're trying to buy their way in the Constitution to keep their $6 million a year. So that's another
great answer.
No on the...
Going back a few months, at the National Republican Convention, you told me, I'm not sure I should read this question, that the opposition has been untruthful about the bridge. I used the term borderline misleading. I guess I was a little weak. Can you be more specific?
Yeah, if you look at it, it's just one continuation of misrepresentations after another. And I did seriously mean my illustration to you of when I look at the ads, the only thing I find that's true is there's a bridge in Michigan. Because they keep on showing like public safety people and teachers talking about how they're not going to be able to have books in the classroom because of building this bridge. There is no truth to that at all. We have a binding legal agreement with the country of Canada to say they are paying for our portion of this project. They're going to be repaid by tolls with no liability to Michigan. In fact, the best part of this is after the 40 or 50 years when they're repaid, we share in the revenue stream from that bridge project, which probably has another 60 or 70 years of life that amount to potentially several $billion of revenue coming to the state of Michigan. This is an incredible opportunity. The latest version they added was the famous Chinese steel ploy. They made it sound like Chinese steel. There is no Chinese steel that will be used in this project, period. The only thing there is something that starts with a C that will be involved. It's called Canada. And we did go for a waiver to the Buy America Act. And why did we do that? Because think about it. one end of the bridge is in the United States, one end of the bridge is in Canada. So isn't it right that we be able to use U.S. and Canadian steel on a bridge that they're paying for to be built between two countries?
A couple more questions. Obviously a teacher, this one I can read. I'm concerned about how we preserve our public school system. Can you explain how you intend to preserve public education? How do vouchers support public education?
Yeah, well, the real question is we've made a lot of reforms to public education. I'm a product of the public schools, and I'm proud of public schools. We shouldn't walk away from them at all. They're an important part of it, but shouldn't we have choices for kids? And that's where charter schools come in, the ability to do cyber schools, all these other variations are good shopping choices because our school system became too much about the adults and about spending money. And we lost sight of the goal of our education system is student growth. And the two guiding goals I want to focus on with our education system is how do we make our kids, first, college or career ready? And again, it's not just college ready, it should be career ready is the focus. Skilled trades need to be emphasized much more so in our system. And the other part is self-enrichment. How do you grow and develop as a better person? So that's the focal point. So you're finding I'm hugely committed to our educational system. In fact, I believe it should be recharacterized as a P20 system. Prenatal through lifelong learning, and make it much more seamless and easy to go between the system. There's awesome opportunities. So we're lining this up next year as a major initiative again. We've made some great reforms, but we are not going to stop. So in March, we're going to do an economic development summit for all the economic development people and their boards in Michigan to bring the private sector together to talk about career planning, about how we can understand the needs of the private sector for careers now and in the future. And I did that in March because in April, we're going to do a statewide education summit. So the goal there is we're going to focus in on bringing the output of that economic summit to that education summit to say, let's talk about careers. And how do we build an educational system that's going to focus on careers and then self-enrichment? And that's the kind of forward-looking approach that, again, our best days are ahead of us. The tools, the opportunities are huge. So let's keep on that path. So I'm bullish on the system. I'm all fired up. We just need to get through some of these bumps.
We do have a few bumps. Last question. Proposition 1. Does this allow the local government to abolish the benefits of teachers in failing schools?
Yeah, Proposition 1, what it does is it doesn't take away benefits from anyone that's earned benefits. What it does is talk about in terms of future things, and those are more reforms we've done at the state level, because I'll speak to teachers because I can see there's a focus there. We had pension and retirement systems, post-retiree medical systems that we didn't fund. That was not responsible. We basically put in programs in place, and this goes back for decades. So we put benefit programs out in front of people that we didn't responsibly take care of. So the issue is let's be real about it and understand those aren't sustainable. We couldn't keep doing the same thing. Again, not taking anything away from what's been earned, but prospectively to say we need to revise that to say let's adjust it to a way that's financially responsible, that we're going to fund. Because I want these people, when they're in the system working hard, doing good stuff, they know their benefits are going to be there when they're done. That's the right answer. Now, when you talk about Proposal 1, the emergency manager law has been a very good law. It's been around for decades in terms of the old law. We improved it two ways. We put in an early warning system to help communities or school districts avoid the situation to begin with, and we have averted a number of situations because we could work with them earlier and better. The second thing Public Act 4 did was give more powers to the emergency manager, because too often we had a manager come in that would be there for too many years because they fully couldn't resolve the situation. My view is have them get in, do their work, and transition back to the community once you've reached a point of financial stability. That's a better answer. And then you look at where we're at today. We currently have 8 communities or school districts in financial emergency status. Of those 8, I can tell you, there's 3 of them. We had Public Act for a long enough time period where we were able to do good things, and we're actually working on the transition plan to potentially leave those communities. And the biggest constraint we have on working through the path to leave those communities is now we're working on something to say, what agreement do we come to with the local community to make sure they do good financial practices, good budget practices, like how they estimate their revenues, all those kind of practices that we're doing at the state, that other people are doing, that they tended to lack, to make sure so when we leave, they're just not going to fall back in emergency status again. So these are good common sense things. This has been very successful, so that's very much why I'm an advocate to say we need Public Act 4 in the very few rare emergencies that we have, but when you have that emergency, don't you want the toolkits? You need to be successful. So I really encourage you to speak up on that one. So this is great. These are good things to get through, and so I remember the motto, right? One is a yes and no on the rest. Everybody got that down?
Governor, thank you for your time today. We know your schedule the next 8 days is a bit hectic, but a heartfelt thanks from all of us for your leadership these past 2 years. Thanks much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.
We'd like to close today by just, I'd like to ask Doug DeVos to come up here. Doug, I think everybody knows, is the president of Amway. He's a former chair of the Economic Club, and also he was the chair of the West Michigan Policy Forum this year, and I think Doug has a few concluding remarks. Doug?
Well, I just have a few things to touch base on as we go from here. One is to, again, thank, and I think this demonstrates how the community comes together. 3 organizations, the Policy Forum, the Chamber of Commerce, the Economic Club, that came together because it's in the best interest of the people in this community to talk about these things and be informed on these things. That's a critical element. And I know we've been talking a lot of the business aspects of it, and we talk about the economic impact, and that's right, because we're an economic club and a business association with the chambers and the policy forum. But this is all about our community. This is about the people in our community. They are the ones who will be impacted by this, and they are the ones who are the target of misinformation. And what we need to be able to do is have the courage to stand up and be leaders in the community to share information, because the people in our community are smart people. They're bright people. They know how to make decisions, and all we need to do is just talk. We need to be able to share what we know, what we've learned, what we've taken the time to learn, to share with others. That's all it is. You know, a lot of times they say we don't want to talk about politics and religion, right? You know, first, like number one, if you ever get into a trade association or you're with a group of people, just don't talk about politics. You know, isn't that a great way to start a dinner conversation? So, can I talk to you? No, don't go there. This isn't about politics or religion. This is about public policy. You're not advocating a candidate. You're talking about issues that are absolutely viable for citizens in this community. You're talking about laws, and you're talking about our Constitution. You're not straying outside the lines. It's a whole different category. So have the courage and the confidence to be a leader and have those conversations. Engage in those conversations with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family, even with your brother-in-law. And you don't have to wait till Thanksgiving, right? You go for it. It's okay. We want you to be able to do that and to do it in a good way. I think the governor presents many compelling arguments. It's just not my job to try to recreate those arguments. But I think when something is important to pull out is the relentless positive action. He does it in a way that doesn't demonize anybody or point a finger at anybody. He's talking about ideas that are the best for our future. Isn't that the conversation that we all want to have with people? Don't we want to be at a level where we can talk about good things, good ideas for our community, for our future, for our children and our grandchildren? Isn't that what people would be interested in hearing about? I think it's up for us to take that perspective with us. Now, the governor is probably better at it than me, because I tend to get a little narrow and a little focused and sometimes a little angry. Ask my kids. And I bet we all have a little bit of that temptation because these things make you mad. When you see misinformation and you know it's being put out there to try to take advantage of somebody else, that makes me angry. When you see the amount of resources that are being diverted to this to protect just a few because they're only looking out for themselves, that makes me angry. But we have to step away from that. And we have to look and say, you know what? They're just stuck. Like the government said, they just don't want to change. There's a lot of times in my life when I don't want to change. Again, ask my kid. You know, I should introduce my kids to you sometime, but or maybe I shouldn't. We all get stuck in that position, so maybe we can all have a bit of an understanding of where someone is. And it's because they don't see what the next step could be. They're stuck and they don't see, they're scared of the future. Maybe that's a whole nother reason for us to have that conversation. The purpose of this meeting was to bring ourselves together and to talk about this in a positive environment. And the governor is so gracious to be here and share with us his perspectives. And I think from the time he started to run till the time he got elected, whether you believe or agree with him in his political positions or not, you've got to be able to say he's a person who has cast a big tent, has consistently talked about being positive, and consistently included people. I think that's a great example for all of us to follow. But we have to take action. We can't just sit here and talk amongst ourselves. When we are raising our hands, we have to raise our hands, and we have to go find some new people to talk to, not just the ones who will believe us. This is not a preaching to the choir type of exercise. This is an exercise where we have to take a little risk and talk to somebody because it's important. And then we have to have faith. People are smart. They'll make good decisions. We trust them to make good decisions. Our whole country and our state is built on that. I believe in that, and I think you do too. So we know that we can take the materials that are here, take them home with you. It's pretty simple. It's a one-page document. Even I can figure that out. It's a one-page document. Put a little note on the front. Send it to somebody else. Make sure you distribute it. Again, this is not a political campaign. This is a ballot initiative. This is a very different piece. Don't be scared of treading into this area. Talk to your employees. This is fair to talk to them. Research has shown over and over that people want to know what their employers are thinking. Your employees want to know what you think about this, or what the chamber thinks about this, or what others in the economic community think about this, because they think about these things. It's pretty simple with the phraseology there. One's a yes, no on the rest. Again, even I can remember that one. And you know what? We're not telling somebody what to do. We would never advocate that. The vote that people have is precious. Your vote is precious. And the right to make your decision about what you want to do is a precious thing. And we believe in that. And so we don't want people to go out and try to push something on somebody or try to get them to do something that they don't want to do. All we want to do is ask you to have the conversation and share information. The one area where you can be a little pushy is to encourage them to vote. Be a participant. Be part of this state, this community. That is their right. Make sure they know the importance of their vote. Every vote matters. Every vote counts. It's critical that they go and move forward and do that. You know what? That's probably one of the areas we can be a little pushy. Go vote. But I think we also have responsibility as citizens to be informed. And if we can be part of that process, then I think we're on the right side of everything. And so I think if we just kind of pull some of those pieces together from all that we've learned, from what Matt said, what Bill said, what the governor said, and I just want to again thank all the people who have brought us together. Take courage. Take heart. We have to be courageous in our citizenship. We have to not just talk about change, but take action and take risk to achieve change. You know, we were here earlier this month talking about the entrepreneurial spirit that is part of this community and that has brought this community to where it is and has been so important for the vibrant nature that we have as a community and the way it's been able to lift people up and how people have contributed to it from all walks of life and all different backgrounds. But that didn't happen without people taking risk. and without people feeling like they're right up at the edge or exposed. But yet we all got together at that meeting and we celebrated that. Let's celebrate it again by taking action in these next few days to share and be able to raise our hand that we talk to 10, 20, 50, all our employees, everybody that you can see, everybody that you can talk to, and share information because we respect them so much that we want to talk about the future of our state and how we are all in this together. So with that, go take action, tell people to vote. I think it's pretty clear right there. All those materials are, there's no copyright on them. Nobody's going to sue you if you duplicate that and send it out to anybody. In fact, we're going to encourage you to do that. Please be a messenger and move forward together. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.